Hey there. Welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 340. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is some of my new reaction figures from Super7. Now, I actually had a box of mixed reaction figures arrive in the mail just today, but I'm not going to talk about all of them, even though there were some pretty cool ones in there. Like I got some holiday Universal monsters, like the Invisible Man here. I got some new Transformers, like this Wrecking Crew version of Devastator, which is pretty cool. But I'm going to talk about those in a different video because I've been kind of stockpiling some Godzilla reaction figures since the summer. It is now November as I sit here to do this. So yeah, when I can do a whole theme, I prefer to do that because I'm a lot less likely to hold your attention if you're somebody that only likes Godzilla and I'm only showing you one Godzilla figure, one Transformer, one Universal monster. So I have enough Godzillas here that I can focus on Godzillas today, so that's what we're going to do. And there's a bunch of them. And it's a pretty cool little weird mix of characters. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll just dive right into it. The most recent Godzilla figure I got, which came in the box that I just got today, so I've only had this figure for a couple of hours, is this guy here. So as you can see, I have not even opened him up yet. I will, and probably before I post this video, I'll be able to splice in some pictures of him outside of the packaging. But this here is the Marusan Godzilla. As you can see there, this is named after a company that used to make Godzilla toys in the 70s, I believe it was, which was before my time. But there wasn't a whole lot of Godzilla toys available back in the old days. And the Godzilla figures that did exist, they were not very film accurate. So you could get like the Shogun version of Godzilla, which didn't really look anything like Godzilla. And I have one of those here that we're going to talk about today. And there was the Marusan Godzilla, who also doesn't really look like Godzilla. Like, sure, he's a bipedal kind of dinosaur-looking guy, but really does not look like Godzilla from any of the films. And yet, because these were the only Godzilla toys that people had back in the 70s, there's a huge nostalgia factor associated with these sculpts, and people love these things. And even though I didn't grow up with them, I definitely have a fondness for them as well. So this figure here, Super7 first released their little miniaturized reaction figure scale version of this figure a couple of years ago. It was, I think, it was one of the earlier ones they released. I have this same figure in, I think, 3 or 4 different colors now. I have kind of the standard green with silver. I have a glow-in-the-dark. I have, what else? I can't even recall right now, but I do have 3 or 4 of them. I'll do a little side-by-side here so you can see all the different ones that I have. This one here, I don't know if he has an official title. It doesn't really specify. It just says, you know, Marusan, soft vinyl, Godzilla. But kind of unofficially, I think people have been calling this the creamsicle Godzilla because you can tell by the colors that he is orange and I guess kind of yellowy white, which does kind of line up with a creamsicle. Although this guy glows in the dark. So the parts of him you can see that are not orange, so like his feet, his hands, his tail, and his head, those glow. Now, I'm not sure if there's any glow on the body because I haven't opened him up and I haven't tried him out yet. But yeah, I think he was probably sculpted in fully glow-in-the-dark plastic and then they just painted the orange over him. So I don't know if any of that glow kind of gets through the paint or if it's only going to be his, you know, his head and his arms and stuff that glow. But yeah, he's pretty cool. I really like this sculpt, as simple as and inaccurate as it is to the character. But yeah, it's fun, and I'm happy to get it another time, especially in a fun color scheme like this. Super7's been releasing lots of different variations of their Godzilla reaction figures, and I get a little bummed out when they do boring variants. Like, we got a lot of gray Godzilla figures, because Godzilla is gray on screen, but then they'll release a black and white variant of the same figure, and it's like basically a different shade of gray. And that's not much fun for me to collect. I want to see some wild, crazy colors. And this creamsicle Godzilla really fits the bill there. So, yeah, very cool. I like him a lot. And this guy's fresh in today, so pretty exciting. Now these next couple figures that I'm going to show you, they've been out for a little while, but they're brand new to me. I live in Canada, and there are a lot of reaction figures and just toys in general that are exclusive to stores that we don't have in Canada, which is very frustrating. So, for example, Walgreens, they get some exclusive figures. Target, that big chain store, we don't have those up here in Canada. We had them for a little while and they went away. So there's lots of Target exclusives. We don't get those up here. And then there's a lot more kind of specialty little boutique stores that we also don't have. So it's very, very frustrating. For example, just the other weekend, it was a big celebration of Godzilla's 70th anniversary. I don't know why I'm a little tongue-tied here today. Godzilla's 70th anniversary. And so Super7 revealed a bunch of new Godzilla figures. That Creamsicle Godzilla being one of them. So I was able to get him from Super7's website directly. But then there were two other releases that were only available at box lunch stores, which again is a store that we don't have here. I can't say with 100% certainty we don't have them in Canada anywhere. Maybe we have one in Toronto or something, but we don't have any in Nova Scotia. And their website doesn't ship to Canada, so couldn't get them from box lunch. There was also some exclusives to the Godzilla Store, which is Godzilla.com. Godzilla.com also does not ship to Canada, so that's very frustrating. So that's 4 Godzilla reaction figures I was not able to get my hands on. Now, I do have a younger brother who lives in Miami, which is very convenient because he's often able to go hunting for these Target exclusive figures for me. Now, in the case of the Godzilla and box lunch exclusives, I was going to order them online to his address, and then he could just bring them home to me next time he visits. And because it's November, Christmas is right around the corner, so he'll be visiting soon. I'm hoping I can still do that. The problem is he's in the middle of a move. So at the time that these figures went up, like a week or two ago, I couldn't order them because he couldn't really be sure if he'd be into his new place when they arrived or whatever. I don't know how quickly they ship out. So I didn't order them online, and I missed the boat on the box lunch ones because they have sold out now. But the Godzilla.com ones are still available, so I'm hoping that once he's settled in his new place, I can still get those shipped to him. Probably won't happen before, well, maybe I'll get them before he comes here for Christmas. Fingers crossed. But anyway, there was a couple of Target exclusives that came out a couple of months ago, and I told him to keep his eyes peeled for them because, again, I could not find them up here in Canada anywhere, even if I tried. So he did find them. And so he had them, and he was going to bring them home when he came home for the holidays. But my mom and my sister actually just went down to Miami last week to visit him. And when they returned, they brought these with them. So these are some pinball-based figures. Again, Target exclusives. And so you can see by the packaging, like it's got kind of a pinball design here. You get the little paddles. And it's kind of, might be a little hard for you to see the graphic. I don't know if it'll be a little more clear when I do a side-by-side. But anyway, it is based on like an actual Godzilla pinball game that existed, and this was like the art on the back of the pinball game or on the base of the pinball game, whatever. Yeah, pretty cool. So this Godzilla, he's green with blue fins, and it's a little hard to tell, but he's got blue eyes. So it matches that artwork there. And this guy is very cool. Now, this is a repaint of a Godzilla figure that we already have. I can't remember what year it is. Each of the Godzillas, they name a year, like Godzilla 57 or whatever, because there were so many Godzilla movies that and the costume changed a little bit with each movie. So they've been making figures specific to each movie. Now, I'm a big Godzilla fan. I'm a Godzilla nerd, but I'm not that hardcore that I can recognize every Godzilla costume from what movie it was from. This one here, I cannot remember particularly which movie it was from, but we have received it already in the standard gray colors. I will do a side-by-side in my split screen. Although I'm not sure if I'm going to open this guy up yet. I do open up my figures. As you saw, I opened up the Marusan Creamsicle Godzilla. But this one here has just got really nice packaging with that pinball thing there. So I like the paint. I like the overall look of him. One thing that might prompt me to open this up is I used to pin action figures up on my walls. I don't really do that anymore. So if I was going to keep him carded, I would probably want to just set him on the shelf, like maybe behind my other figures. But you can see the bubble on this card is up quite high. So you can't really set him on a flat surface without him toppling over. So for that reason, it's kind of a bummer. If the bubble was placed at the bottom, it would be a lot easier to display him nice and flush against the back of a shelf. But because of the placement there, I might end up opening this up. We'll see. But yeah, pretty cool. And the companion piece for that guy was this Mecha Godzilla. So you can see he's got a whole new different set of artwork on the back there. Still got the pinball motif with the paddles and everything. But yeah, it just focuses on Mecha Godzilla there. And I think there's a couple other creatures in the background. There's a Mothra on the bottom. I think that's King Ghidorah in there, maybe, in his robotic form. Anyway, pretty cool, pretty cool. So yeah, this Mecha Godzilla is the same Mecha Godzilla that I already have too many times, to be honest with you. Because they first released it in kind of a flat gray, which was fine. And then they released a glow-in-the-dark version, which is kind of a dull white, kind of a creamy white like we saw on the Creamsicle figure. And it wasn't really different enough. And then they released a silver version. And I'm like, okay, another silver version. And then they released a black and white grayscale version. So I think I have 4 or 5 Mecha Godzillas, and they're all some shade of gray, essentially. This one here, he's got a nice metallic paint job, and it's got a purple tint to it. I don't know if that really comes across on screen. Maybe if I do open him up, you'll see it better in the split screen. But yeah, even still, you kind of almost have to squint to see how purple it is. Like at a glance, he kind of just looks like another silvery Mecha Godzilla, which is a little boring. I would have liked to see them do something crazy. I know they were trying to match the pinball machine, so you know, fair enough. But if I get any more Mecha Godzillas, they're gonna have to be, you know, polka dots or, you know, neon yellow or something, because yeah, they're a little repetitive. But again, the packaging is very nice on these things. I might keep them in the package. We'll see. So yeah, those are from my brother Brian. And then there's another one from my brother. So I mentioned earlier about Godzilla.com. So 2 figures just went up on their website the other week for Godzilla's 70th anniversary. But earlier, maybe 3, 4 months ago, they had another exclusive. And it was the Shogun Godzilla. So this is the other goofy 1970s design that I mentioned to you. So in the 70s, there was a toy that looked just like this, except it was much bigger, and it was green. Super7 has been releasing little miniaturized reaction figure versions of that 70s toy. They've already released a green one, and then they've released like many repaints. I've got, let me see at a glance, I think I've got 7 or 8 of these right there on my shelf. But I really had to have this gold one. It's a really nice eye-catching gold. This is the kind of weird paint job that I really like to see instead of just slightly grayer. I don't know. There's something about this gold in particular. It reminds me of like a Chinese food menu or something. I don't know. But I like it. He still has that same functionality where you kind of push the little knob on the back and his little flame comes out of his mouth. Yeah, cool design. Really cool paint job. This was only available on Godzilla.com, and I think it is still available because when I went to look for the newer figures, I still saw him. He wasn't sold out. So if you think he's cool, you can still track one down. But this one I did have to order from Godzilla.com and have it shipped to my brother's house in Miami. And when he visited in August or September, he brought this along. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. What else? What else? I think... Okay, let me see. There was another wave of Godzilla figures recently. So besides all these weird little odds and ends that I've been showing you so far, they do actually release proper waves of figures. Usually it's about like 4 to 6 figures in a wave. So there was a wave of Godzilla figures released, I don't know, let's say a month month and a half ago. Except it was a small wave. There was only 3 figures in the entire wave. One of them was a Godzilla that I already had. The one that I have is gray. This new version was gray, but with blue fins, as if he was about to, blow his atomic breath. So it was like a powering up version of Godzilla. And that's fine, but for me, it's not different enough to justify my purchase. If these things were $10, sure, why not? But these things retail. If I find a Godzilla reaction figure like at my local comic shop, because I really don't see them anywhere else, that you can't buy them at like Walmart's or any other normal retailer. You kind of have to go to specialty shops. These things here in Canada retail for $30, $35. So to get just a slightly different paint job, and not even a different paint job, but just the fins painted, I couldn't justify another $35. And if I buy them online, which is what I have to do with a lot of these, including the ones I'm about to show you, is then they can get almost $50 because I'm paying the American price, but then the exchange rate tends to inflate the price. And then I usually have to pay a customs charge, and I have to pay a shipping charge. And yeah, it kind of works out to like $47 a figure or something. I can't be spending that on a figure just because his fins are a different color. However, I did buy this. So this is another Godzilla, and it is just another gray, arguably boring Godzilla. I have several Godzillas that look very similar to this. But that's because Godzilla looks pretty similar in most of his movies. They don't change the look that drastically. But there's probably some deterioration on the rubber suit, so they couldn't reuse the same suit movie after movie, even if they wanted to. So there's some slight alterations. This Godzilla here, which again, it's called Godzilla, I don't know, 64 or something. I don't remember what year it was. But this guy here is kind of unique because he's got big eyebrows. Now, I'm sure you can't see it while I'm holding it up, but you'll see it in the insert shot. So yeah, he's got these kind of gray eyebrows that come down in like a V to give him this kind of angry look. Although, to be honest, he looks a little bit more dumb than angry. Just maybe it's because of the way his pupils are painted. He looks a little cross-eyed. But it is unique. So if you just glanced at my shelf, you would think this was a duplicate of a figure I already have. But if you get out really close and be like, oh yeah, he's clearly got a different head sculpt. He's got a different design. I'm not sure what else is different. Oftentimes, the entire sculpt is new. This one might be, they can sometimes get away with reusing the same arms or legs or tail, or maybe a combination of those things. This one might be entirely reused except for the head, or it could be entirely new. I'm not sure. I haven't really done a side-by-side. But yeah, pretty cool. I'm always happy to get a new version of Godzilla to match up with one of the other films. Even if the figures aren't that different, there's something kind of cool about being able to look at my collection and say, I have every different Godzilla costume represented on my shelf. You can put them on there in chronological order, and I think that's going to be a pretty cool collection when all is said and done. So that was one of the 3 figures. The other one that I didn't buy with the blue fins. And this is the 3rd figure, and I was quite excited about this guy. This is King Caesar. So this is one of Godzilla's adversaries. And this guy does not get a whole lot of love. You don't see a whole lot of King Caesar merchandise. Now, I kind of get it, because he's one of the, I would say, dorkier kind of kaiju. Like, everybody likes Mechagodzilla, and everybody likes King Ghidorah, and everybody likes Mothra, even though Mothra is kind of lame, too, if you ask me. King Caesar, he's cooler than Mothra, but he's still a little goofy looking. And, but yeah, I do have one figure of him in my collection previously. I have kind of a Bandai figure from a few years back. And it's okay, but it's a little out of scale with these. I'm happy to get this figure to kind of join my reaction figure collection, because it's getting pretty vast over there, actually. I have a lot of Godzilla reaction figures. And besides the Godzillas, I also have some of McFarlane's Pacific Rim figures, which basically fit in the same scale. I also have some of Mezco's 5-point Godzilla figures, which are also similar in scale. And they're all displayed together over here on a shelf. So whenever I can add a new character that isn't just another variation of Godzilla, it's kind of nice. So yeah, King Caesar, it's a fun figure, pretty fun paint job. Yeah, I like him. New character, good times. Now everything else I have here, there's no more unique characters. Every one of these guys is a character that we already had in our collections, or at least I did. They're all re-releases of characters. And these last, what have I got here? 5 more. Most of these were San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. So San Diego Comic-Con happened in the summer. I can't remember if it was July or August, but these were all for sale at the con, and then there were some limited numbers available online after the fact. So yeah, I scooped these up quickly because it's always a little bit of a worry that they might sell out. I think most of these are probably still available online, so you probably didn't miss out on them. But yeah, there were some must-haves. I didn't want to risk missing out. So, as you may have already noticed, I haven't really covered much glow-in-the-dark here today, but I think I've mentioned them a few times. Super7 releases a lot of glow-in-the-dark variations of their figures, whether it's their Ultimates figures or their reaction figures. Just glow-in-the-dark Godzilla alone, if I glance at my collection there, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 10 plus of Godzilla's glow-in-the-dark. So a couple of characters that did not previously have glow-in-the-dark figures were Anguirus. So this is one of Godzilla's buddies. So he's the little like Ankylosaurus-looking dinosaur dude. So yeah, we got a standard kind of gray version of Anguirus in, I think it was just the last wave of Godzilla figures. And now we've got the glow-in-the-dark version. So he's got that kind of, milky yellow glow-in-the-dark plastic that you expect to see with a glow-in-the-dark toy. But then he's got this nice kind of brown paint wash over top. And then he's got some gold paint as well for his claws and his spikes and everything. And then some additional white paint for his eyes and his teeth. And he looks pretty cool. I actually think I prefer this one to the standard one, just because the standard one is kind of gray, kind of boring. Yeah, so very cool. Happy to get this guy. And the other glow-in-the-dark figure they released in San Diego was Baragon. So, like King Caesar, Baragon is one of the lesser-known Godzilla kaijus, I would say. You don't see him on a lot of t-shirts and stuff. Another way that kind of defines whether a Godzilla character is a main character or not is if their name ever appeared in the title of a movie. So there's, movies like Godzilla versus Mothra, or Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, or Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla versus Gigan versus Megalon. But there's no versus Baragon, there's no versus King Caesar. Technically, there's no Anguirus either, but that's because Anguirus has always been his ally, so they don't really fight. But these other guys, they usually just appear in kind of some of the melee movies. So like Destroy All Monsters and Final Wars. That's where we see these guys like Baragon and King Caesar. So I really like the design of Baragon. The original release was in his standard kind of brown, dinosaur-looking colors. Again, this one's much more exciting. I like that green wash, the red eyes and everything. Like, it really kind of brings out the design, makes it a little more fun. And that's what it's all about, right? So yeah, very, very cool. Dig it. And then I honestly don't remember which one came first, but at San Diego there was a new repaint of Hedorah. So I think it was this one. So this one, you can see he is pink and metallic blue and orange and weird. The standard Hedorah figure is just kind of a gray blob. So I already have the gray version. And then they released a glow-in-the-dark version that had some fun colors on it, similar to like the Baragon. So I have the glow-in-the-dark one. He's cool too. And then we got this one. Now, it looks like it just doesn't make any sense. There's not much rhyme or reason to the color scheme. But apparently there is. Now, this is me. I'm going to show how I'm not a hardcore Godzilla nerd. again, because most of these weird color variants are based off of a previously released toy. Sometimes it's old toys from like the 70s, sometimes it's maybe old toys from the 90s, sometimes it's bootleg figures that were released in other countries in the world. I don't know that stuff. You know, when I was a kid, I wanted Godzilla toys really bad, but there weren't any. But apparently there were in other places in the world, and I just wasn't privy to that knowledge. The guys over at Super7 that make these, they know all that stuff. They are very deep into the Godzilla lore, not just the movies, but the action figure history. Super7 started out as like a magazine company, and they documented all the different variations of Godzillas made by all these different companies around the world and stuff. So when they take a weirdo version of a character like this, it is based off of some old vinyl toy that was made in limited release somewhere else in the world. So that's cool for them, because you know they're recreating some weird obscure thing that they probably hunted for and was very hard to get, very expensive. But for me, I don't really know the history. I don't really care that this was some figure that was only available in Hawaii in 1992. That doesn't really matter to me. I just think it's fun, and I like the weird colors. So there you go. There's Hedorah, and there is another Hedorah. And this guy came immediately after the convention. So it was kind of weird, because why not just make them both convention exclusives? But one of them was available at San Diego, and then it was like a week later they revealed this guy. Now I might have them reversed. I can't remember which one was which. I think I prefer this one of the two. This guy is mostly yellow. Then he's got green, red, black. It's a weird design, but I like it. And having all four of these Hedorahs on my shelf, they look really fun. It's a nice little army of smog monsters. And yeah, just very, very cool. I like it. All right, one last Godzilla to show you. Now this one may have been my favorite, but it immediately got a little soured for me. So this was San Diego Comic-Con exclusive again. And it came in a box. Most of these other figures came carded, as you would have seen on my insert shots. But this one came in this cool little box. And it was based off of the Aurora model kit. So you can see I've opened mine up. I took the figure out. But again, if we go back to like the 1970s, when there wasn't a whole lot of Godzilla toys to choose from, back then you either had to buy like the Marathon figures or the Shogun figures, and that was about it. Or you could have bought the Aurora model kit. Now it had a pretty nice sculpt, still not really accurate to the films, but a pretty cool sculpt of Godzilla, and he came with a little base and some little buildings. And I think there was a couple variations of the model kit. There was like a glow-in-the-dark one and maybe a not glow-in-the-dark one. And if you've ever put together model kits, which I used to do as a kid, not a lot, but I had a handful of them, mostly cars, but I had a dinosaur one. But they usually come in snap-together pieces that are very kind of flat, dull colors, and then you have to paint them to make them interesting. So anyway, this here is the Godzilla ReAction figure done to look like the Aurora model kit. And I think it is just super, super cool that they did this. Now, it feels like a model kit. Like the plastic feels more brittle than what we're used to seeing with the other ReAction figures. Like these guys feel like toys. I wouldn't recommend a kid play with them, but I think if your kid took this out to the sandbox, he probably wouldn't hurt him. This guy here, if you took him outside, I bet you would snap the fins off. It feels like something that isn't supposed to be played with. I can't swear by that's true. Maybe that's just my perception, but just the way it sounds when I move it. It feels like a little more hollow. It just feels a little more brittle. But he also has this display base, which is just like the one in the model kit. But what's cool about this is he just comes off of it. So it kind of serves as like a little display base. You'll see it better in the insert, but there's a couple little pegs. So you can take him off of that. So, you know, he doesn't look out of place with all my other Godzillas because none of them have display bases. But you can choose to put him on there if you want to. So he does work as an action figure. He's still fully posable, just like all the other figures. So his head turns, his arms turn, his legs kick forward and backwards a little bit. his tail. Yeah, his tail turns too. For a minute there, I was going to say his tail doesn't move, but it does. So yeah, he has just as much articulation as any other Godzilla reaction figure. And I think he looks great. I love that he's just this flat green. There's no paint apps on him at all. So he looks like a little green army man, you know, like just very basic, because I believe this is what the model kit would have looked like when you first snapped it together, and then the idea was that you would paint it up however you wanted to. So very, very cool. However, what kind of bums me out about this is I will definitely buy this figure again if they release another version, let's say painted gray to look like a Godzilla from the movie. If they decide to release one with polka dots or zebra stripes, I will absolutely buy that too. But within like 2 weeks of them releasing this figure, they released another version of it. But instead of the like the box like I have here, they released it on a blister card with this same artwork on the blister card. But he's still the same green, except they painted the inside of his mouth red. They painted his eyes like white or red, and they painted his claws like kind of a yellow color, I believe. And so it's basically the same figure with just a few minor paint adjustments. And even though I think it's cool what they were going for here with the basic green to match the model kit, I think the other version looks better with a little bit of red in the mouth and the red in the eyes, because that's how any kid would have painted it. Maybe they wouldn't have bothered to paint another kind of gray or green over the green base color, because they would think, well, it's already green, it works. But any kid is going to paint his eyes and his mouth and stuff. So it does look better, but it's such a slight paint variation that I don't know if I can justify dropping the, $30 to $50 to get this one. I'll buy it again when it's completely repainted, but just because he's got eyes and a tongue painted red, I can't really justify that. But I wish I knew that was coming, because I probably would have bought that one instead of this one. But anyway, what are you going to do? This one's still cool. So yeah, that is all my new Godzilla reaction figures. So we covered quite a few of them here. It's a pretty good haul. And yeah, I don't know if there's much more I have to say about it. They've recently announced a bunch more Godzilla reaction figures, so this train isn't stopping anytime soon. I am not a big fan of the blind box figures. I'm really not a fan at all. Like, there's some cool toys that come out of those blind boxes, but it's very frustrating collecting blind boxes and risking getting duplicates of figures. I just wish they would release them all. Or, maybe put a little code on the bottom so people in the know could find the ones they wanted. And, they could still have the mystery box for kids that were just picking them up off the shelves. But for collectors to have to buy multiple boxes, again, if they were $5 or $10, I could maybe deal with it. But at $20, and again, that's the Canadian price. In America, I think they probably are 10 or 15. But yeah, here we still pay $25 or something for a blind box figure. And that's just way too much for a figure that you might just be getting a duplicate. But yeah, there's a new wave of Shogun blind box figures coming. So this same figure with 4 new paint jobs. So that's pretty cool. I'm hoping to get some of those. And then there's a new series of metallic paint job Godzillas. And that's more up my alley. That's what I want to see. Crazy paint jobs. Metallic green and, metallic purple and silver and yellow and red. They've got some really, really cool designs that I'm looking forward to getting. But unfortunately, I'm just going to have to ask my brother to, when he sees them at Target, I'll say, like, buy me 2, and then take them home, open them up. And if I didn't get any duplicates, then maybe I'll risk sending them back to get me maybe 1 more. But yeah, I can't just tell him to buy me a box of them, because I'd spend a fortune trying to collect all the variations. So anyway, but yeah, there's more coming. And yeah, so I'll have to make even more room on my shelf, I guess. But yeah, that's it for now. So I might as well wrap up. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave me comments below. And I'll see you soon with another video.